Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Leaders of Inclusive Childcare podcast series brought to you by CanAssist at the University of Victoria and the Ministry of Education and Childcare of British Columbia. My name is Alicia Garcia, and I am your host for this series. I am recording today's podcast on the traditional unceded territory of the Lekwungen peoples. I feel a deep gratitude to be here every day as an uninvited settler, and am thankful for the teachings and the knowledge keepers who've cared for this land since time immemorial, particularly the Lekwungen and Wasanich peoples who continue to teach and to care for the land. Today's topic is about leading community connections, and our special guest is Wendy Kenward. Wendy, thank you so much for being here today. Before we get into our topic, would you mind just telling us a little bit about yourself and your work?
My name is Wendy Kenward. I live here in the traditional unceded and unsurrendered territory of the Syilx people in West Bank, on the territory of the West Bank First Nation. And I'm very grateful to be living and working here and being a part of this community. A little bit about myself. I've been an early childhood educator for over 35 years. I think going on almost 40 now. It's been a long time. And I've done everything in the community, from working in group childcare, working for childcare resource and referral, supported child development, Aboriginal childcare resource and referral, early years tables, and just had a lot of really great opportunities to be working with amazing communities and amazing people. I love sharing and chatting with people about what our journey's been like. So I'll leave it at that.
And what initially drew you to the profession?
When I was graduating from high school, I had spent a lot of my younger years working in children's programs at the community center, volunteering. My dad had that real volunteer spirit in the community. He worked on the board of directors at the community center, always got me involved in doing things, wanted me out of the house and connecting. When I was getting ready to graduate from high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up. And they did, back then in the 80s, we did aptitude tests. And my choice was become a preschool teacher, which was the language then, or a mortician.
Oh.
And so, I know, right? Beginning of life, end of life. I was kind of like, wow. And of course, I was drawn to working with children. So at a young age, went into the early childhood education program at Langara College and Vancouver, and just loved it, just thrived. And it's sort of been no looking back since. I've been in lots of different roles and places, but always gravitate back to early years programming.
So that aptitude test, there might have actually been something to that. I know that you've been in multiple different roles. I'd like to hear more about your journey to becoming more of a leader and when that leadership position kind of started for you.
So in the late 1990s, I had a son who had special needs. He had a disorder called neonatal adrenoleukodystrophy. It's a big mouthful, but basically his life was very compromised. And at that time, we decided as a family to move to the Okanagan to get more family support and to be closer to our extended family. With that transition of our personal lives, I applied for and accepted a job at the Childcare Resource and Referral, where I had the most amazing team of people to work with, including a dear mentor, Jane Bland, who actually just passed away this summer. So fresh on our memories and fresh in an honoring place for me, who saw a spark in me and said, hey, I've noticed you've got these skills. I've noticed that you're good at this. Really, she paid attention and saw the gifts that we each brought. So for all of us, we had that real connection. She saw where we thrived and gave us opportunities to kind of push boundaries and try out those skills. So I'd say that's when it first started. It was sort of that little ignition of the spark. And going through our memories up around Jane this past summer, a lot of us had the same experience, but in different ways. We weren't all going to walk the same path in terms of our leadership, but we had these extraordinary gifts that we hadn't capitalized on or hadn't activated in our own work life. And so for me as a mentor, she was tough on us. Don't get me wrong. She was really tough on us. But she saw us, like, to be seen and to be heard was just so important, and to build those relationships.
We all need someone in our corner like Jane, to have such a champion in your corner. And Why do you think it's so beneficial for leaders to have a mentor like that, especially early on in their leadership journey?
I actually believe in my own personal value system. I believe that as humans, we need to see each other more. So whether it's working with the children, you see and hear, like listen and truly watch and see where the children's gifts are, but also as we walk together as adults, right? Instead of an approach to leadership that says, I'm going to tell you what you need to do and you're going to do it, that kind of top-down directive, it's getting to know your persons, right? Building that relationship and trust and that connection. And that takes time, sometimes longer than other things. And then holding that person up. So that means they may not succeed, but holding them in a safe place so that they can try. Because if we don't acknowledge and hold each other up and give each other opportunities to do those things, then people will continue to have doubt. Even as a coworker, I do that, right? Like, oh, I hear you. I hear you saying you really want to try this out. Have you tried talking to management? Have you tried this approach? Like maybe you can have this opportunity. I think it's that encouragement and support. It's that being seen, being heard, and being valued. I grapple with it as humans because in my personal life, I'm having conflict with humans around me. And I'm like, life is too short to be holding each other in judgment over things versus to hold someone up and say, I get it. I'm here and standing beside you. What can we do right versus what you're not doing right? And we don't know every story. Everyone has a different story and everyone walks their own story. And if we don't acknowledge that everyone's story is valid, if we try to project our own story onto someone else, other people won't succeed. In this world, we all want to succeed.
Absolutely. And I appreciate how you said that, life is too short to be judgmental and to think about all the negative. Thinking about mentorship, it's not even necessarily just about the mentor and the mentee, but this is everybody across community, just being there to uplift one another regardless of your role. And so shifting gears here now to talking with community, first with families. So we've been in the field for the past couple of years, just asking people questions and, really getting to know what leadership looks like in practice when it's inclusive. And a lot of families actually don't really know about inclusion and they don't know where to look for information. They don't really understand what it means. So how do you start those conversations with families when we talk about inclusion?
I'll go back to defining inclusion. And I know our definition around inclusion is vast, but I also want to acknowledge that it comes from an equity place for me. And so inclusion to me is about everybody's story being woven together. Everyone has a unique story. So even those people that seem to walk in life and fit into what we call the mainstream status quo, they have a unique story that we may not see underneath. And I think that's the rich tapestry around inclusion. So for me, I have to define it in that way in order to have those conversations with people. And for me, how I have approached this topic with other families is first and foremost building a relationship. And that means maybe taking some time, right? If it's a first-time family, they're coming to look and they want to know about your policies and philosophies, you can reiterate what you have on paper, but also take some time to lean in and kind of get to know them and hear where they're coming from with their values before bridging deeper subjects. The simplest of moments, I guess, the ordinary moments of getting to know each other. So recently I was getting ready to go to a new community and I was calling the person who is my contact or my host in that community. And I was in that mode of rush. I'm going to answer this question. I'm going to do this. Okay, ask where this is. Ask where that is. What time do I have to be there? Is there a PowerPoint project? I was going all the checklists in my head. And I got on the call and it was a big sigh. And it was like, hey, how you doing? And it stopped me in my tracks. I was like, you're not just going to answer my questions. I need to take a breath, step back, and actually just listen and be in space with you. And sometimes for families, that's what's needed as well. They need that time to pause. For some of them, if it's their first time walking through the door of a childcare program, it's all new. might be their baby leaving home for the first time if they haven't done infant toddler care and they're coming to a 3 to 5 program. It might be there's a lot more noise, things are different from home, right? And so just pausing and, hey, so how are you doing? Not, oh, okay, so we're an inclusive center and these are our guidelines and these are the rules. Again, listening, leaning in to listen and hear what they have to say, right? So that's first and foremost for me. And then it's about values, right? It's about the center's values and our value systems. And so being gentle with, well, these are some of the things that we value. We value that your child has these gifts and your child may have things that they love to do and other children have other gifts and we value all of them. And we have that flexibility to create a classroom that is collaborative and vibrant and has all these amazing gifts. And so for me, it's about bridging that fear and bridging that relationship in a gentle way. I get it. You have to have those boundaries. You have to have policies and things like that. That can definitely come when you start to sign on the dotted line. At first, from the get-go, parents need to know that they're welcomed, that their little person is going to be loved and greeted and cared for as they are, for who they are.
Absolutely. And it reminds me of, when I was teaching, I taught grades 2 and 3. And I remember first weeks of school, it was always about building relationships with the kids because they won't learn if someone is teaching them that they don't trust. It's the same for adults, I think. You have to build those relationships in order to teach them or to learn from them. It gets very tricky when there are families who maybe don't hold the same values that we do when it comes to inclusion. Yeah. I'm wondering if you have any experience with that and how you've worked through situations like that.
To be honest with you, I think the times when that rub has happened for me was mostly in my younger career. And so I took cues from my mentorship. When I was in supported child development, when I was later in my career and I was a team lead, I found that more of the interaction was with staff who had these experiences with families. So my experience has been coaching staff to have difficult conversations with parents. And I think the biggest thing is to put yourself in their shoes and to walk in their journey the best you can, right? To understand, our world is a place where our value systems are clashing and we just don't have that empathy for understanding each other. And I think the conversation could be around, these are the values that we have. We believe every child has the right to be here. Every child has gifts that they contribute. In actuality, I think the biggest lesson for leadership in our field is it may not be a fit, right? It may not be a fit for that parent, and that's okay. Or there may have to be compromises on both parts for the parents or the staff or whatever, but it's okay to say no. In our field, many people feel, we're caregivers, so we just want to keep giving and we want everyone to be happy. And so in our processes of trying to make everyone happy, we sometimes let go of some of our values or we bend the rules a bit. And then in the end, it becomes messy for everyone. So I think it's important to have your boundaries, especially if it's around a values piece, and be okay with saying, no, this isn't a fit for you. I know childcare is so limited right now in our province. And so it may be a matter of, we'll definitely provide loving care while you find the program that's the best fit for you or the caregiver that's the best fit for you, but just acknowledging that that's not a fit, that's okay.
And that does get tricky too, because it's all situational, right? So, what happens with one family might not work with another. And so I think it is important for leaders to know and to just give themselves grace with that and use it as a learning opportunity rather than thinking that you're making a mistake or that you're letting people down. It is a learning opportunity for sure. And, putting ourselves in the shoes of the families now, when families walk into centers and maybe they're shopping and doing a little bit of research because they want their child to go to the best program that is possible, what questions should families ask or what things should they look for when they are going and looking and choosing programs?
And I think for me, the key is the energy in the room, not to sound corny, but you walk in, are the children happy? Are the staff happy? Is there a lightness to the room? Is there a comfort level? Parents need to follow their instinct as well, right? What's in your gut? Does this feel comfortable to you as a parent? Is your child comfortable coming in the door and interacting with others? Like, those are the kinds of things I always encourage parents to look at. For me, it's about relational fields. It's about, are you greeted and welcomed when you come in? Are the staff upbeat and positive? Are they asking you questions and getting to know you? You walk into a center and someone's immediately wants to know your income and where you work and everything else, and that's all they're asking you, then that might be a flag, right? I mean, maybe for some people that feels normal or normative, but we're talking about the people that are going to raise your children, right? So are these early childhood educators people that you want to spend time with your child? Going back to values, the value systems, the philosophy of the center, ask them what their philosophies are around different activities and inclusion. If you have a child that has some extra needs and you're worried about them being included in the classroom in a truly inclusive way, asking those questions, right? Like, what is going to happen in this scenario? Or, what will it look like at lunchtime for them? Ask about routines and daily activities. Like, is the schedule flexible, right? Is there enough flexibility for differentiated learning for different levels of gifts and challenges for each child? Those are the kinds of things. But I think for me, it's that instinct. It's that immediate, like, how do you feel? How does the room feel? Are you welcomed in? Is there a community thriving when you walk in the door? That's the most important piece. But I also know, it's been a while, my daughter's 20, but when I was looking for childcare for her, there aren't a lot of choices, right? And you have to find the one that meets your needs, but there's sometimes limited choices because we have a shortage of childcare. So sometimes it's about finding the best fit with what's available, as well as the best fit with your value system.
Thank you all for joining us for part 1 of Leading Community Connections with Wendy Kenward. Part 2 will be available this Friday. Until then, thank you for your support and take care.